Hey there, welcome back to the pod. Today we're going to talk about the NBA draft and the Portland Trailblazers' role in it. It's like the biggest time of the Blazers season, the last like 3 years. So I know everyone is as interested in it as we are. We thought we'd kind of develop a big board for the Blazers. We've talked about a lot of these guys individually, but now we can kind of stack them up against each other. Guys like Alex Sarr, guys like Zachary Richache, guys like Matas Buzelis, and then maybe some wild card type guys in there like Donovan Clingan and Stephen Castle. So let's go with you, Colton. When you hear those names, how do you rank them? Is there anybody that I missed? Is there anybody you wouldn't include in that list
So we're, I
for
mean,
the first pick?
yeah, we're going off the assumption in this video that the Blazers are going to get their pick and then the Warriors pick, which is at 14. So we'll probably talk about the first pick first. Uh, I mean, you kind of almost listed them in the order that I would rank them as far as how I think the Blazers should and would draft. I think you have to take Alex Sarr first off the board. He, has that ability to play with the unicorns of the NBA, like Chet, Victor. He's not as wow, amazing on the same level as them yet, but he has the body type, he has the defensive instincts, he has potential to stretch the floor to be that guy on the offensive end. Um, and you watched him earlier in the year, he played a couple games against some American players, and really showcased what he could do. So I think he has to be the first one off the Blazers board. Um, Going on down, you want to prioritize size. Like we've talked about this before. I think the Blazers should prioritize size. In this draft, a lot of the players are what I would call in the same tier. I think at the top of the tier list, Sar is kind of alone. But then after that, you got wings, you got guards. I don't think the Blazers should prioritize guards if they're all pretty similar talent level. So I think next, and a lot of people in the Blazers fandom, I don't know how they feel about this, but Risha Shea, I think, is the clear fit. I know that people, talk about concerns with his like free throw shooting and whatnot, which I get that, but he recently had a slump shaded, but he just started shooting. He's coming out of it now. He's played a lot of games. He's played like in the 60s in this last season. He's going to translate into the NBA, I think, pretty well. And he's going to fit perfect. He would fit perfectly with the Blazers. The Blazers need his skill set, 3-point shooter, skilled, size. So that's number two. I think number three, if all these guys are, if those two guys are off the board, I think Buzelis has to be next. He's got size. He has skill. He can be maybe a Wagner, if you will, type player, which the Blazers desperately need that kind of a guy. Um, he recently actually said he wanted to play Risha Shea in one-on-one, which, shows his confidence. I don't know if that's cocky or confident, but I like what he's got. He hit 2 game winners this year, the G League Ignite. I know how we all are up and down on G League Ignite, but I think he's another prospect that the Blazers should take a swing on. Finally, rounding out kind of the bottom side of it, because I don't want to take up the whole video on my own. You got guys like Cody Williams. I'm kind of nervous on Cody Williams. I would actually put him lower. Stephen Castle's actually an interesting fit with the Blazers. He's a lockdown defender. I might even put him next, which is in fourth, which is kind of crazy. He's 6'6", and he brings that toughness, energy, defense. And then you got Klingon. I'm not as out on Aiton as you guys are yet. I don't think that center is that position of need. If the Blazers are sitting at 6 overall or 5 and kind of those guys are gone, I would take Klingon there, but I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't love it. I still think the Blazers need to shoot for a wing. So I think I would put Cody Williams actually above Klingon. I think I would put Klingon low just because centers, I don't think the Blazers desperately need a center and when they're all close.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for me, I think everyone, you guys probably know pretty much where I'm at. I think we need scoring. That's like the thing I'm most concerned about is that we need some guys in there who can fill up the stat sheet, because I just don't trust that that's going to be Scoot's game. I don't think Anthony's going to stick around for very long. I hope he doesn't stick around for too long. And Shaedon needs some help to fill out the stat sheet. So assuming that he's healthy and able to play. To that end, I really think that we need to focus on the wing. So yeah, if we get the #1 pick, it's going to be it would be tough to pass on Sarr. I don't really think we're probably going to get the #1 pick, but I'm really focused on Risha Shea. I think that he's a great fit. I spent a good, couple of hours going down the rabbit hole of watching his highlights, and I see him as developing into a really serviceable scorer, shooter, and a pretty good defender on top of that. I think that he has the ability, the raw materials that you need to develop a scorer at the wing position. He's still pretty young, fairly inexperienced. He is getting a lot of good experience this year. He's going through, taking some lumps even. In some ways, that can be a good thing. That can be an asset. The fact that he's had to shoot himself out of a serious slump, that he's been through several different teams, had to learn how to play with lots of different players. That's kind of where my focus is. I think there's a good chance we're going to get like maybe the 3rd pick. That's kind of what my gut's telling me. If we end up at #3, I think he might still be there. Kind of depends on who's above us, but I think there's a good chance that that's where we end up, and that's what we should do with that pick.
Few guys I noticed weren't mentioned. A lot of them due to size and position, as we've talked about. But one, not so much Ron Holland. Neither one of you guys mentioned him. He's a forward, a guy maybe more for that 2nd pick.
Well, the problem with Ron Holland, in my opinion, one, he can't shoot at all, which another non-shooter, right? And he's not a big. But two, the other side of it is reportedly people say he's on the smaller end of the measurement scale, like he's closer to 6'6", not 6'8". So if he can't shoot, he doesn't really bring that lockdown defense that Castle brings. He's athletic, definitely, but if he measures out at 6'8", maybe, and is bigger than we think, maybe he could jump up the board, and he'll probably be like a workout warrior. But I have him kind of lower than the guys we mentioned, in my opinion. If he's there at 14, if he falls, definitely take him. But I wouldn't take him with the Blazers' first pick unless you're back there at like the 7th.
Then there's a few other players, the guys like Robert Dillingham, Nikola Topic, Reed Shepherd. Are those guys just completely off the board for you?
I mean, I don't think that anybody in this draft stands out enough to prioritize a guard. You're just putting yourself in development hell. You're gonna already have to give away Brogdon for sure. Simons, if you find the right fit, you can clear the runway. And I guess at that point you could give yourself another guard, but then you're delaying it, right? Like, I don't think that Toumani Camara, as much as excitement as he brought on the defensive end, I don't think he's somebody that you don't draft a wing over. Like, if a wing's sitting there, Toumani Camara should not stop you from drafting a wing. And same goes at the 4, if it's a stretch big or a swing wing, I guess, right? I don't think anybody's sitting there, Jabari Walker, that you pass on a 4 at either. So
unless you're what's his name, Henry Abbott or whatever, that guy that was saying that Jabari Walker is the core of the Blazers and they need to figure out a way to lock him down as soon as possible.
He's a piece. I mean, he's not out of the NBA bad. Like, he's good, solid young player, great hustle, but you don't draft somebody else because Jabari's there, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, with that first pick that we have in this draft, whether it's 7 or whether it's 2, we just got to take someone who's at least like 6'7".
Yeah.
There's really no way around it. If we drop further than that or whatever, then maybe you just have to try to draft talent and trade. But I don't want to get into that mess. I really think that we got to get some size. If we don't have some size on the team next year, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna look like we're still a few years away again.
I do hope, I don't think it's gonna happen, but it would be really cool if Castle fell to the 2nd pick for the Blazers, because I think that dude's gonna be legit.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
I don't think so either. I almost would spend the first pick on him, but that size issue is concerning. I get both of you guys' points there. I think he could very well end up becoming the best player out of this class, though. All right. Speaking of that second pick, I think both of you guys had some guys you wanted to talk about for that 14th pick.
Go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, so someone that I kind of came onto my radar recently is someone whose draft stock really skyrocketed during the tournament, and that is from Colorado, Tristan da Silva. He's pretty tall. He's measuring in at about 6'8", but it sounds like maybe he's more like 6'9". Pretty lengthy. His highlights look pretty good. He's a shooter for sure. He's a spot up shooter. He can rein the ball in, and I think that's something we're desperately going to need. He's pretty lengthy, pretty good wingspan too. So he should be able to hold his own on defense. He's, a little older for a rookie, like 23, coming out of those COVID years, but that might not be the worst thing for our team, where we might be able to get someone who's fresh and pretty young, but not necessarily another 18-year-old. That might actually be a good thing for us. It seems like he's kind of a pretty level-headed, strong personality, very talented, can definitely score. And he really showed himself during the tournament that he's a pretty serious threat. So I think that we need some shooting. I really think that should be a priority. And if we can get a 6'9" shooter with that second pick, I think that's something to consider.
I think it's interesting because last year the Blazers had a pick at pick 23, and they picked up a 23-year-old shooter, Chris Murray. That didn't work out that great this season. I still want to go with somebody young here. I think the Blazers need to take the biggest swings they can with where they're at. They need to find a stud, and I think that they need to take swings. And both these guys are swings, and they're both wings, right? Swing wings. So the first off, I want to counter kind of what you said with a young wing. His name's Tyler Smith. Not the most exciting name out there, right? He's another G League guy, which, G League, I get it. But go in there and look at his stats. He's a shooter, and he's a big shooter. He's about 6'10". He's a lefty. 7'1" wingspan. So got that length. I think he projects out to be a stretch 4. And he was sometimes the best player out there on the G League Ignite team this year. And I think that he's a great fit. I think that if the Blazers can take a 3 with their higher pick, or, I know they're flexible, wings, it's positionless, but kind of more of a 3 with the first pick, and then him with the second pick, I think that's a home run. The other guy that I wanted to talk about, and he's even more of a swing. He's kind of like all oozing potential. He might even go higher when the draft comes around, is Tajane Saloon. And so he just go in there, do yourself a favor. Scouting is not watching highlights, but just watch some of his highlights. Just to give yourself an idea. He's an exciting player. I think he's got a lot to work on as far as things like footwork goes. He looks like he's kind of like a skittish on the court, like in that nature, but he really seems like he has potential to have like kind of it all, like the handles, the defense. He's all over the place on defense right now, but he's got the body for it, the shooting. Very exciting player in my opinion, and he's big. Both these guys are big, so I think if either of these two guys are sitting there at 14, the Blazers need to run to the podium.
One thing that I am seeing with the age issue is an interesting one to me, the experience versus youth. And just going back briefly to Tristan da Silva, one thing that I'm noticing about him is that through his 4 years in college, every year he has improved. So, as a 3-point shooter, he's worked himself up from about a 27% shooter to a 40% 3-point shooter, basically. Which, to be able to get somebody as a rookie who just got done shooting 40% the year before pretty consistently, taking like 4 or 5 a game, and making them consistently, and also rebounding at his size. I mean, that's a big deal. And it would be really nice to get somebody to kind of bridge that age difference between like our Ayton and Jeremy Grant and our Scoot and Shaden. it's definitely something to consider, I think, but definitely getting another super young, super talented, swing for the fences kind of a guy. If that's who's available when we get there, I wouldn't be mad at it. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out.
I'm just
Another
getting PTSD from similar conversations with Chris Murray. And I know a rookie season is not 1 year, but usually when they're 23 years old, you hope that they come in more ready, especially when they've been improving every year, like Chris Murray was. You know, you hope that it translates more immediately when they're 23 than it did for Chris Murray. Not giving up on the guy. I'm just saying it's giving me flashbacks of what we heard.
And I'm
coming
not
down.
saying take Chris Murray again. Don't get me wrong.
No, I know they're different player. I'm just saying, like a 23-year-old 3-point shooter, wing.
Another one of those guys is Dalton Knecht, who he's like a little smaller. He's 6'6", but I think he's not 6'6". He is 6'6". He I think is also pretty polished. He's 23. I think he'll be ready when he comes in.
For sure.
And he could be sitting there too potentially. It's, as we've discussed before, it's really hard to know who's going to be available at what spots, I think, until the draft lottery, which is coming up.
We're gonna watch it
It's next Sunday, is that right?
this Sunday. This upcoming
This
Sunday.
upcoming Sunday. Yeah, we will be watching that. We will be reacting to that. So be on the lookout for that. We're gonna have the freaking out, blowing out the speakers moment when the Blazers get the number
2 pick. I'm calling it. Shooting my shot. Blazers are gonna get the number 2 pick, and they're gonna have the 14th pick. What's your guys' shot? What's your guys' guess?
I'm
Three.
gonna say 3.
3 and 14.
I'm gonna say 5. 5 and 14. And yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see how that all shakes out. Any other prospects you guys want to talk about? Anybody we missed?
There's guys out there like Kel'el Ware, who he's kind of another big, and I think he's projected to go a little later. But at sitting there at 14, if you like him in this draft, I think a lot of the guys are similar spots. He's another big shooter, right? Um, the theme that I want the Blazers to focus on is combo of skilled big players and shooting. I think if they can get that, and I want them to be young personally, but if they can just focus on that, unless they really have a guy that's a guard, which cringe as I say it, stands out that much, which I don't think anybody sees around the league. Just go with bigs, wings that can shoot maybe a little bit or have the potential to shoot like someone like Buzelis, who proved it in high school.
Some of the mock drafts have our boy Edie at about 17. We know our dad would take him at 14. No questions asked.
No. Yeah, as much as I don't know, I wouldn't call myself a DeAndre Ayton hater or anything, but I do think that that hole isn't necessarily need to be filled quite as fast as the wing role. That's why part of me sort of agrees with Riley and prioritizes Riche over Sarr potentially, just because it might be a better fit to have that shooting and that length out there rather than try to figure out the DeAndre Ayton Sarr game. I think that could be somewhat of a struggle. I don't know. Ayton would probably have to slip into more of the 4 potentially on offense if Sarr's not really a shooter.
I think, well, and Sarr hopefully projects to be a shooter, and DeAndre Ayton at least has the mid-range game on lock, one of the best mid-range shooters in the league, top 5 at least. I just want to say one thing too, and I know you guys don't like to hear this, but this is something that a lot of Blazer fans have talked about in the comments before in our videos. The Blazers are most likely, just not even with tanking, going to be at the bottom of the West again for at least one more season. And it's probably going to coincide with Chauncey Billups getting fired, right? It's going to all kind of, maybe the ownership changes, fingers crossed. Next year's draft is not like this year's. There are real stud wings at the top, according to the projections right now, but all signs point to these guys being like top level wing prospects. You know, Cooper flag, capture the flag, and Ace Bailey. And both of them are like competing for who's going to be the number one pick, and they have been for a while now, but they both look really amazing. So just take your swings this year, and if you're bad next year, one of those guys is going to maybe be sitting there for you and can fill your superstar role. I know we don't want to wait forever, but I think one more year as we figure this out is what's going to happen anyways, just naturally.
It would
It's
be nice
probably
to see some progress this season, at the very least. If it's they don't get a lot of wins, I hope that we get to see a little bit more out of Scoot and Shaden, and
Yes, agreed.
DeAndre Ayton for that matter as well.
Agreed.
Yeah, I hope that we get to watch some fun basketball next year, if nothing else, because that's supposed to be the whole point. When your team rebuilds and sucks and loses a bunch of games, you're still supposed to get to watch these young, super athletic guys go out there and actually play and like develop and see what kind of player they're going to become. And we did not have that kind of year this year. We had a very frustrating watch Jeremy Grant and Malcolm Brogdon try to put the team on their back.
Yes.
It was not good. So I hope that
agree.
next year we at least get to see some of these guys play. And shout out, Kirby, you mentioned the video that was highlighting Jabari Walker earlier. So shout out to Bobby Marks for the worst ever off-season Blazers video that I've ever seen in my
That's
life.
it. My apologies to Henry Abbott. I mistaked you for Bobby Marks.
Let's hear the quick summary for those of you who didn't get to watch it, because I just want to hear your guys's just quick. What's the gist of what he said?
I mean, most of that information fell out of my brain after I watched the video, but it was
more than anything, it was just very clear that he hadn't watched any Blazer games and that he was just hoping that no matter what happened, it somehow benefited the Brooklyn Nets.
that's
Oh, okay.
It was
when he
just
was like-
weird.
He was like, we have to, he's like, they have to trade that 14th overall pick to the Nets because the Nets don't have a first round pick. Like, what are the Nets going to give the
Like,
Blazers?
we don't care about whether the Nets have a pick or not. It's not up to us to give them the handout of a 14th overall pick just because they don't have one.
Yeah, he was also talking about, like, he was acting like salary is going to be a huge problem for the Blazers. He was like, they have 14 players on their roster, so how are they going to incorporate 4 picks? Like, there's not 4 players on the bottom of the roster that they could easily shuffle off. I mean, are they going
They're
to
going to
commit?
give away Brogdon for nothing.
And
for-
are they going to commit
for first
to?
picks.
Are they going to commit to Emu Baji and the 0 for 15 3-point shooting guy Banton? Like, these guys are clearly going to be easily moved, released, whatever for these draft picks. And then he was acting like like the Grant, Brogdon, Simons, and Ayton are going to be like cap problems moving forward when these guys are clearly going to be moved most likely. So
There is a reason why we didn't go too deep into the second rounders. I don't think they are going to take 4 rookies. I think that they'll either trade one of these seconds for a future 2 seconds, or trade one of the picks for an established player. But I doubt they're going to add 4 rookies after they just added 4 rookies. It doesn't usually work like that. But I don't think the salary is going to be a problem when they're going to trade away players like Simons and Brogdon.
it's like he didn't understand that the Blazers were in the middle of a rebuild. He was acting like it'd been a few years since the Blazers had traded Dame. Like this wasn't the first year that they lost their superstar player.
Right.
And he was like this team really should have had more like 35 wins this year, so that it would have a worse draft position and still miss the playoffs, not even be close to the plan. All right, I'm done with ranting about that. But I was looking at the mock draft for 2025, and you are right, dude. It's like every one of these players is like 6'8", 6'5", 6'9", 6'7", 6'7", 6'4". It's a lot more size. It looks like going for next year. So
keep an eye on Cooper Flag and Ace Bailey. They look both very good. And
there's a few other guys down there too that have very high player comps on these.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I would take more development from the young guys rather than a higher draft pick, to be honest with you. I just want to see them start to be competitive, Scoot and Shaden in particular. and Aiton for that matter.
Shaden's getting to the point now where like 2 more years of being a bottom dweller team, it's eventually going to take a toll on him. I mean, you can't be that bad for that many years. It's, like this year, fine, whatever. He didn't really play, he's still really young. But I mean, if we got like 2 more years of tanking or whatever, he's going to be getting to the point where it's almost too late for him to become like a star player on a good team.
I would like one more year of development. It's going to come naturally. The Blazers are not going to be better than a lot of teams in the West next season, other than maybe Utah if they finally pull the ripcord on Markkanen, things like that. Spurs are going to be better. They just are. They're going to get an upgrade. Wemby is going to be a monstrosity even more. So the Blazers are naturally going to be near the bottom of the West, barring injury issues from some of these teams, in my opinion. That's my point. Like, I don't want them to actively just tank and miss every game because of injury, because they're gonna be bad anyways. I just want to see, like you guys are saying, development, some cohesion, run some offense of sets, maybe like not gym wreck ball, and just see what you got in the young guys. I totally agree with what you guys are saying on that.
Yeah, that was a bummer about this year, is that the games that they were competitive in were led by Brogdon and Grant. There was really no competitiveness from the young guys who you hope to see. And yeah, so hopefully that changes next year. And hopefully they get another maybe 1 or 2 legitimate young guys to join the team and help build that new culture. Thanks everyone for tuning in to our draft preview. We'll see you on Sunday for a reaction to the draft lottery. That is going to be fun. See you next time.
Bye.